What's going on, guys, and welcome back to another FPL video on the channel. And in today's one, we are going to be looking at not one but two FPL wildcard drafts for game week 4. We've got one team with both Mohamed Salah and Erling Haaland. We've also got another team with just Erling Haaland and no Mohamed Salah. If we could get 100 likes on today's video, that would be absolutely sensational. But with that being said, guys, let's just get straight into it. And the first team I want to speak about is the Erling Haaland but no Salah draft, right? This is the draft I want to talk about. And the first point I want to make, guys, is I really don't believe you have to go for Mohamed Salah. So far this season, I think Erling Haaland has proved, right, to be a much better FPL asset. And quite frankly, I do think Salah has been quite lucky to be as close as he is to Haaland in terms of FPL returns. For me, when I watch Liverpool play, Salah does not look as much sort of involved as he usually is. He's not really looked like scoring a lot of goals. He's not really looked like getting a lot of assists. And when I've watched Man City play, it's the complete opposite. For me, Erling Haaland and Salah, so far this season, it's night and day in terms of how threatening these players have looked. For me, when I've watched Man City play, I've seen Erling Haaland get into so many good goal scoring opportunities, and he really should have more FPL points than he has got already. And also, what I want to show you guys, right, is just the underlying data as well, because I do think it supports the sort of my argument that I'm trying to make. As you guys can see here, right, in terms of expected goal involvement so far this season, Mohamed Salah has only racked up 0.7 expected goal involvement in the first 3 games. And when you compare that to Erling Haaland, guys, you can just see like the difference is absolutely ridiculous, right? Compare that to Erling Haaland's expected goal involvement, he's got 4.2, right? So as I said, it's night and day between sort of Erling Haaland and Mohamed Salah to start the season. That's just my overall opinion, which is why if I had to prioritize one of these two players, I would definitely be prioritizing Erling Haaland over Mohamed Salah. Anyway, guys, I just wanted to make that point to start things off. But with that being said, let's just get straight into the team, right? And yeah, we'll start off with the defense. In goal, we got Nick Pope, and then a back three of Daniel Munoz, Gabriel, and Van de Ven. And then on the bench, we do have Tosin and Goodmanson. Then we have a midfield 4 of Florian Wirtz, Mohamed Kudus, Anton Semenyo, and Cody Gakpo. And then Reinders on the bench as well. And then a front 3 of Erling Haaland, Gyökeres, and big boy Jean-Philippe Mateta. So this is how, right, the FPL wildcard draft for Game Week 4 looks with Erling Haaland but no Mohamed Salah. First things first, let's quickly speak on the defense. I love Nick Pope. I love Gabriel, right? For me, these two are some of the best picks you can get for your defense, because I think long term the fixtures are quite good, but also these two players are playing for some of the best defenses in the Premier League at the moment, guys. It is just simple as that. When you actually look at sort of expected goals conceded so far this season, as you guys can see, Newcastle and Arsenal have conceded the least amount of expected goals, right? So for me, these two right now are the defenses that you want to be owning players from, Arsenal and Newcastle, which is why I've gone for Nick Pope in goal, and that's why I've gone for Gabriel as well. I think some people may argue that, you know, Gabriel on a wildcard Game Week 4 is not necessarily ideal because he's playing against, you know, Man City at home in Game Week 5 and then Newcastle away in Game Week 6. And I agree to an extent, but for me, if you're wildcarding at this stage of the game, guys, in only Game Week 4, you want to have more of a long-term view, right? You want to have more of a long-term view. You want to be picking players for the long term, because you remember you've now not got a wild card to bail you out again, right, until Game Week 19. So for me, again, a more of a long-term view is needed, which is why I've gone for Gabriel. And I think also you want to be in a position where you can roll transfers with this team to allow you to sort of adjust to the new and upcoming fixture swings later on down the line. For example, Chelsea from Game Week 9 have really good fixtures. You know, Arsenal from Game Week 7 have really good fixtures. So yeah, you want to have a bit of a balance. So for me, yeah, I just like Nick Pope. I like Gabriel as long-term set and forget picks. I also like Daniel Munoz as well, because I think Palace have really nice fixtures, and Munoz gives you that attacking threat, and also is pretty decent for defensive contributions as well. And you know, the entry point as well is pretty good with Sunderland at home. And then Van de Ven, again, it's the same sort of thing. I think the long-term fixtures for Spurs are really nice, and I think he is definitely one of my favorite defenders to go for at his price point, just 4.6 million. You know, there's probably a lot of you watching this that have got Van de Ven when he was 4.5 million, which is even better. But yeah, I think the Spurs defense has been pretty decent this season, and their long-term fixtures are really, really nice. So yeah, that's why I've gone for Mickey Van de Ven. And then on the bench, like I said, we got Goodmanson as the 4 million defender. You know, Leeds at home so far haven't conceded a goal yet, which is pretty decent. And yeah, Tosin I like as well as a long-term hold, covering that Chelsea defense at 4.5 million. I don't mind it. I don't mind him as a pick at all. So yeah, that is the defense. Now look, in midfield, I've decided to go for Florian Wirtz and Cody Gakpo, and this is to sort of cover Mohamed Salah. Now I will say, you guys can see there is no Alexander Isak, right? There is no Ekitike, and first things first, let me explain why, right, before we talk about Wirtz and Gakpo. For me, look, with Ekitike and Wirtz, they're just straight avoids, right? Unless you're free hitting in Game Week 4, I wouldn't be going for Ekitike, because I do believe Ekitike does start in Game Week 4, but after Game Week 4, I couldn't tell you who's going to start, Isak or Ekitike. I don't know. We have to remember that Champions League is now coming into play, which does increase the risk of rotation, but for me, you know, Isak hasn't had a pre-season, so I don't think he'll start Game Week 4 at all, right? For the people that do think Isak is going to start Game Week 4, wake up. Right, wake up, guys. It doesn't make sense for Isak to start in Game Week 4 because he's not had a good preseason at all. I don't think he's got the match sharpness, the match fitness, and Ekitike has looked really, really good when playing for Liverpool. So I don't think Isak is going to start Game Week 4. However, I wouldn't be surprised if Isak does start in Game Week 5 or Game Week 6, and that's the reason why for me, I would just avoid Ekitike, and it's also why I would just avoid Alexander Isak, because it's just not worth the risk. We don't know what's going to happen with that situation. So yeah, for me, I've decided to avoid Ekitike, as you guys can see here. Now, of course, there is no Mohamed Salah, which is why I've decided to go for double Liverpool attack with Florian Wirtz and Cody Gakpo. Now, I know Wirtz has been really stinky, right? Wirtz has been really stinky so far this season. However, the upcoming fixtures are really good. It's Burnley away and Everton at home, and with the way this team works, we could actually be potentially only keeping Wirtz for the next 2 games. And look, I will go through sort of what the future transfer plans are with this team once I've just spoke about the players. But yeah, if you guys carry on watching, you'll be able to see what the future plans are with this team. But I think Florian Wirtz for the short term against Burnley and Everton, really, really good. I know he's been a massive disappointment, right? A lot of people in pre-season were shaking their bum for Florian Wirtz, telling us how good he was going to be, and he's massively underperformed. However, as I said, I think Burnley away, Everton at home, it's not bad, and surely now we're going to see sort of what Florian Wirtz is actually about. I'd like to think that, you know, this is the kind of fixture where Florian Wirtz can pick up some FPL returns. So yeah, that's why I've got him in, and of course Cody Gakpo as well. I do think he'll be the starting left winger for Liverpool, which is why I've gone for him, and he's had a really good start to the season as well. So yeah, I do like Cody Gakpo. He's the only real natural left winger that Liverpool have, which is why I'm quite confident in Gakpo's minutes. So that's why I've gone for him, and the idea is to just go double Liverpool attack to sort of try and find a way to get a return if Salah does get a return himself. So what I mean by that is, if Salah's going to score, we'd hope that either Gakpo or Wirtz will be the player to get the assist. If Salah's going to pick up an assist, we'd hope that either Gakpo or Wirtz are going to be the goal scorer of that Mohamed Salah assist. That's the thinking behind it. So yeah, that's why I've gone for Gakpo and Florian Wirtz. Now, look, I've got Kudus in here as well. Not really convinced with Kudus that much, if I'm being totally honest. But for me, I just think the Spurs fixtures are really, really good. So I would like to have some sort of Spurs cover, right? Attacking cover, because I like their long-term fixtures. And yeah, for me, with Champions League, I think Kudus is the least likely player to be rotated. And I think he's the most likely player to just start and get good minutes, which is why I do like him as my most favourite Spurs attacker, which is why he's in there. As I said in one of my previous videos, my main concern with Kudus is his lack of goal threat at the moment. That is my biggest concern. You know, he's only racked up 0.03 XG per 90, right? Overall so far this season across the 3 games, which is really, really low. His assist potential is quite good, but his goal threat at the moment is quite low, and that's my main concern. However, on wildcard, I think I would still just go with him because I really do like the fixtures that Spurs have. As you guys can see, they've got West Ham away in Game Week 4, Brighton away in Game Week 5, and then Wolves at home in 6, and then Leeds away in 7, Villa at home in Game Week 8, and then Everton away in Game Week 9. So yeah, the long-term fixtures are pretty decent for Spurs and Kudus, which is why he's in there. And then of course we've got Semenyo as well. Semenyo, not much needs to be said, man. He is a long-term set and forget pick. Really like what I've seen from Bournemouth so far. 90-minute man, starts week in, week out. Yeah, for me, Semenyo, he's in great form as well at the moment. He's looking really, really good. So yeah, I'm a big fan of Semenyo as a pick. Now, I want to speak about the front 3 quickly. Of course, Erling Haaland is in there. Gyökeres for me has to be in there as well. As I mentioned, you know, you want to have sort of a long-term view. And I also do think, even in the short term, I don't think Gyökeres is a bad pick at all. I know some people have been saying that, you know, he's got off to a relatively slow start in the Premier League. He's not really shown much, and I do agree to an extent. But I think Gyökeres will be the kind of player that does well in the sort of easier games, and he'll be essentially like a flat track bully. But also, what I want to say with Gyökeres is the next 2 games, Forest at home and City at home, I don't think it's bad for Gyökeres. I think we've seen the City defence, right, is abysmal in my opinion. The City defence can be got at 100%, and they do have gaps. They've got spaces in behind, and I think with Gyökeres, he's a man that suits the transition, right? He's a man that loves to play on transition, and I think that's where he is at his best. And I think in a home game against Man City, where they have a lot of gaps in their defence, where they leave a lot of space in behind, Gyökeres will thrive in a game like this, and I wouldn't be surprised if he walks away with a goal in that game. So I don't think it's that bad. I think the Forest game as well, they've shown that defensively they're not as great as they were last season, so I don't think that's a bad game as well. Newcastle away is tough, but that's really the only game that I look at and think, ooh, Gyökeres is going to struggle in this fixture. Other than that, I think the long-term fixtures for Gyökeres look really, really good. So yeah, for me, that's why I've included Gyökeres in this team, and I think from this point onwards, he will prove to be a really good FPL pick in my opinion. And then we also do have big boy Jean-Philippe Mateta. I like the fixtures that Crystal Palace do have. Mateta starts every game and is on penalties as well. There is an argument to be made, right, that, you know, Crystal Palace, especially when European football starts, and with the current injuries they have, you know, Ismaila Sarr and Adam Wharton, they could struggle, right, and that could affect, you know, the performance of big boy Jean-Philippe Mateta. Maybe he doesn't score as many goals as he would with Sarr and Wharton in the team, which is a completely valid argument. And that's why I do want to mention this, right? As you guys know, there is no João Pedro in this team. And for me currently, if I was to build this draft, I'd actually have enough, just about, right? I've got 0.2 million in the bank. I would have enough to go from Mateta to João Pedro. So if that's something you want to do and you can afford, then going for João Pedro over Mateta is definitely viable. But I just think, in my case, I would rather play the fixtures and go for Mateta, because I think Sunderland at home, West Ham away in the next 2 is really, really nice. And the way the rotations work in this team, we get to play Mateta in all the good fixtures that Crystal Palace do have. But at the same time, I do understand that João Pedro is the man in form, playing in a better Chelsea team. But for me, the fixtures just aren't as good. So it all depends what you want to do. But if you're someone that is a big fan of João Pedro, you can still put him in this FPL draft in place of big boy Jean-Philippe Mateta. That's just your call to make. But anyway, with that being said, guys, that is how the Haaland but no Salah draft looks. Let me know what you think of it down below in the comments. But we're not done here yet. Before we do move on to the Salah draft, I quickly want to show you guys what the future transfer plans would be with this team, because it is pretty exciting and I think it does really work well. So with that being said, let's just get straight into it and look at what we would do with this team moving forward, right? So in game week 5, the plan with this team would be to leave the starting 11 as it is, to be honest with you, right? Reinders would stay on the bench as he's got a tough game against Arsenal. Tosin's got United away. So the defense would stay as it is, and that's how the team would look. And we would just roll the transfer, right? We would simply just roll the transfer. Now, moving on into game week 6, right? Once again, the team would be, the plan would just be to roll. What I actually would do here, right, is bench big boy Jean-Philippe Mateta, who's got Liverpool at home, and I'd start Reinders, who's got Burnley at home. I'd also bring Tosin into the starting 11 for Daniel Munoz, and then you can start Gabriel away to Newcastle. You can start Pope as well. You could, if you wanted to, bench Gabriel for Goodmanson, but I wouldn't really recommend doing that, to be fair. So yeah, that's how the team would then look in game week 6. You got Wirtz and Gakpo. You got double City attack against Burnley at home, and the reason why I like Erling Haaland as well is because you don't have to free hit in game week 6. And what I personally would recommend is triple captaining Erling Haaland in game week 6. That's personally what I would do. But yeah, that's completely up to you to decide if you want to do that. Yeah, that's what I would do for game week 6. I'd roll the transfer again, and then we move on to game week 7, right? And this is where we would make the first transfer, right? We take out Florian Wirtz. So essentially, we just play Florian Wirtz for Burnley away, Everton at home, and Palace away. It's not too bad. And then after that, right, we take him out for Eberechi Eze. This is a player that I like a lot. At 7.5 million, I think he will be a consistent starter, right, in this Arsenal team. And if he is definitely someone that I would consider moving to. Of course, we at this point in time, we would have more information as to how good of a pick Eze is. And if he does look like he is someone that can give you good minutes, I certainly would be moving from Florian Wirtz to Eberechi Eze. And then you have double Arsenal attack for their really good fixture run, which is ideal. It's pretty much what you want, in my opinion. Now, with this setup, we'd bench Tosin for Daniel Munoz, who's got Everton away, and the defense looks pretty good on paper, in my opinion. And then this is the midfield. I like it a lot. You could even bench Gakpo for big boy Jean-Philippe Mateta and play Mateta against Everton, which isn't too bad at all. So again, that's up to you to really decide if you want to do that. But overall, I think the team fixture-wise looks really nice on paper. We got double Spurs away to Leeds. We got triple Arsenal at home to West Ham, double Palace against Everton, double City against Brentford. I don't mind it, right? I really don't mind it. Now we move on to game week 8. The plan would just be to roll once again. You could start Van de Ven, you could start Tosin, again, totally up to you. You could even start Goodmanson playing against Burnley away from home if you wanted to, but I kind of like the team as it is already. Cody Gakpo playing against Manchester United at home could definitely be someone to go for. Maybe you bench Eze this week and start Gakpo, or maybe you bench Kudus, for example, against Aston Villa. Again, it's your call to make, but the rotations are certainly there. You can bench whoever you feel is comfortable at the time, but again, I would roll the transfer. I don't think you necessarily need to make a transfer at this point in time because all the options are really, really good. So yeah, I would continue again, move on to game week 9, and in game week 9, this is where we would sort of have racked up enough transfers to be able to move and act accordingly based on the fixture swings, right? So Chelsea from game week 9, as you can see, if you check Tosin's fixtures, right? Chelsea from game week 9 have great long-term fixtures, right? You got Sunderland, Wolves at home, Burnley, Arsenal is tough, of course, but then Leeds, Bournemouth, Everton, some really good long-term fixtures there. So with these 3-4 transfers, we would definitely want to triple up on Chelsea, in my opinion. And to do that, we take out Kudus, definitely bring in Cole Palmer, right? Because by this point, we'd assume that Cole Palmer is fit to play. We'd also take out Cody Gakpo. Now downgrade him to someone like Dewsbury Hall, right, of Everton. And then we'd also take out big boy Jean-Philippe Mateta for someone like João Pedro. And then also take out Daniel Munoz for Anderson of Fulham, right? So we use all 4 transfers, right, to adjust to the fixture swings, and then this is how the team would look, and I really do like it. We'd start Van de Ven, we'd start Eberechi Eze, and then yeah, that's how the team would look. So we got triple Arsenal, we got triple Chelsea, we've got Semenyo with nice fixtures, we've got double City, and then Van de Ven with some decent players on the bench. But that's sort of a rough idea of what I would do with the transfers. This team allows you to keep rolling, etc, etc. But with that being said, let's move on to the FPL wildcard draft with our Erling Haaland and Mohamed Salah. Alright guys, so here is the game week 4 wildcard draft with both Erling Haaland and Mohamed Salah. As you guys can see, the defense is pretty similar. It's got Raya, Van de Ven, Richard and Livramento. The idea with the defense is to actually cover the same teams but with different players. So I've still got defenders from Arsenal, Palace, Newcastle and Spurs, right, but just different players. So instead of Munoz, I've got Richards. Instead of Pope, I've got Livramento. We've got Van de Ven in both teams, and instead of Gabriel, I've got Raya. So still pretty similar. And then on the bench, we also still do have Tosin and Goodmanson. So the defense is pretty similar. In midfield, we do have Dewsbury Hall, Mohamed Salah, Mohamed Kudus and Semenyo. Again, pretty similar midfields. We do have Semenyo, Kudus still here, but instead of Wirtz and Gakpo, we do have Dewsbury Hall and Mohamed Salah. And then in the front three, we do have big boy Jean-Philippe Mateta, Erling Haaland and Ivan Nilsson, and of course Reinders is still on the bench as well. So the 2 drafts, to be fair, are actually quite similar. They are quite similar, essentially, because I've picked the sort of defenders to cover the same teams. It essentially is, right, Salah, Dewsbury Hall and Ivan Nilsson versus Gakpo, Wirtz and Gyökeres. Essentially, that's sort of what it is. Of course, it's Gabriel versus Raya, it's Munoz versus Richards, but at least they're covering the same team. So if they get a clean sheet, they're more or less going to get similar points, right? Which is pretty interesting. I'll let you guys decide which draft you prefer, but I don't mind this team either. I actually do quite like it, and I think the beauty of this team is you can just captain Mohamed Salah in both Game Week 4 and Game Week 5. I think a lot of people are going to captain Salah in Game Week 4 and Game Week 5, so at least, there isn't potential of you losing out massively on points and on rank, because obviously his effective ownership in these games is probably going to be really, really high. So yeah, that is the beauty of it. Listen guys, with that being said, that is a sort of Haaland and Salah draft. Now let's just get straight into looking at sort of what the future plans would be with this specific wildcard draft. Now of course, this is how the team would look, and yeah, this is how I would start with it, to be honest with you. And of course the captain would be Mohamed Salah. Now look, let's move on to Game Week 5. The plan would be once again again to just roll the transfer, man. That is just simply the plan. Unfortunately, with this setup, you would actually have to end up playing Dewsbury Hall against Liverpool away from home, which isn't ideal. I mean, you could play Rangers against Arsenal instead. It's completely up to you. Maybe Rangers could be a better pick, but I think Dewsbury Hall in this game could do decent for defensive contributions, possibly, which is why I probably would start him over Rangers in this specific week. But yeah, that is obviously not the best. It's not ideal, but ultimately, long term, I think this team works. So it is what it is. It is, I guess, sort of a weakness with, you know, spending so much money on Haaland and Salah together. So yeah, that's what I would do anyway. And I would look, as I said, I would just roll the transfer. And of course, guys, if you want João Pedro, once again, you can switch Mateta to João Pedro. There is enough money in the bank, you know, to do that. So yeah, we just rolled the transfer, and I think the team does look decent apart from Dewsbury Hall. So yeah, we carry on. We move on to game week 6. In game week 6, we'd start Rangers. We'd bench big boy Jean-Philippe Mateta. We'd also start Tosin for Richards, and then again you could start Goodmanson instead of Livramento, but honestly I think starting Livramento is more than fine against Arsenal at home. And also you've got double Bournemouth attack. You don't really want to play your double Bournemouth attack against Goodmanson. So yeah, for me, that's why I would recommend just leaving it like that. And I actually do like this team. I do like it. You know, you've got double Bournemouth against Leeds. You've got double City against Burnley. You've got Kudus and Van der Ven against Wolves. You've of course got Mohamed Salah in the team as well. Dewsbury Hall against West Ham at home. It's not bad, right? The team is pretty decent. And then yeah, we move on to game week 7, and in game week 7, this is where again, right, you would make your first set of transfers with this team, and it is still similar to what we did in the other draft. So what you would do actually is take out Mohamed Salah. Now I know that might seem crazy, but I don't think it's that bad of an idea to take out Mohamed Salah, right? So we take out Mohamed Salah, we'd also take out Eva Nilsson, right, and attack the fixtures that Arsenal have, and once again look to triple up on the Arsenal players. We go for Gyökeres once again, and we'd also go for Eberechi Eze, right? That is the plan. Of course, you could go Saka, but that would affect our moves later on down the line. So yeah, I'd rather go for Eze and Gyökeres. So that's the first thing I would do with this team, and then I'd also start Mateta and bench Dewsbury Hall, and that would be how the team looks. I'd also start Richards ahead of Tosin. Yeah, and that's how the team will look for game week 7. I like it. You've got triple Arsenal against West Ham once again. You've got the double Palace against Everton, and then of course the double City. I like it, right? The team looks good. Then we move on to game week 8, and in game week 8, we would roll the transfer once again. The bench would pretty much just stay as it is, right? You could start Tosin ahead of Van der Ven if you wanted to. Again, that's your decision to make, but yeah, ultimately the point would be to just roll here in game week 8. I don't think the team really needs a transfer. It does look pretty good for the short term, but also long term. Now in game week 9, we've got 3 free transfers, and once again the aim is to triple up on Chelsea. We've already got Tosin, right? So Tosin will come into the side for Richards, and then you could also start Goodmanson ahead of Van der Ven or Livramento if you wanted to. But the plan would be to triple up on Chelsea, and to do that, we take out Kudus, bring in Cole Palmer, right? We've got all that money saved in the bank, so we can go straight from Kudus to Cole Palmer, and then I'd also go from Mateta to João Pedro, for example. Of course, if you've already got João Pedro from the Game Week 4 wildcard in Game Week 4, if you decide to go for João Pedro ahead of Mateta and you start with João Pedro, then of course you end up saving a transfer. But if you start with Mateta, then yeah, one of the transfers you can use is to go from Mateta to João Pedro in game week 9, and that's how the team would look. So once again, we've tripled up on Chelsea, we've tripled up on Arsenal, we've still got Semenyo, we've still got the double City, we've still got, Van der Ven, Livramento. So it is actually still quite similar to the other draft, just a few different tweaks, but ultimately we are still leading down the same path, which is to ultimately adjust to the fixture swings in game week 7 and game week 9, because Arsenal have a fixture swing in game week 7, Chelsea have a fixture swing in game week 9, and we've adjusted to it, and we've managed to triple up on both teams for their great fixture runs. So we've accomplished that, which is the main thing I think you want to achieve if you wildcard this early, to be able to adjust to the fixture swings, and we've done that. So that's why I don't mind this team. But that's going to be it for today's video. If you did enjoy, make sure you do smash a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We are kind of close to hitting 5k subscribers, and the support on the channel has been absolutely amazing, guys. I appreciate every single one of you, so thank you so much. But yeah, man, let me know down below in the comments, which wildcard draft did you prefer? The one with both Haaland and Salah, or just the one with Erling Haaland but no Mohamed Salah? Let me know your thoughts and feelings on both wildcard drafts. I'd love to know what you guys think. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. But until then, I'm out. Peace.